Thanks for joining us here on Joy News Desk. Imagine you as a child with all the great dreams in your heart. Then all of a sudden those dreams are snatched away because you have to get married at an age you can barely understand what it means to have a romantic relationship. That is the challenge hundreds of children, usually between the ages of 13 and 16, have had to face. Child marriage over the years has been a big problem in Ghana, with the northern region having the highest figures of 39.6%. Now, Upper East and Upper West regions follow slightly. The consequences of child marriage are enormous. Let's take a look at the story.
Inside Nima, one of Ghana's largest Zongo suburbs, a call to the Juma prayers welcomes you into this largely Muslim community. These girls have come in for the afternoon prayer, most of them former victims of forced marriages.
Do you understand what you read? My name is Aminat Ismail Daru. I was 12 years old when I was being forced into marriage.
Treat the orphans well, like human beings.
Clap for him.
Aminatu co-founded Achievers Ghana, a group that is helping young girls flee from forced marriages after her own ordeal.
My uncle just told me or break the news to me that the person taking care of me is coming for me. And that man is a husband of 2 wives, for which he wants me to be the 3rd wife. So I just have to run out of the house.
With usually large family numbers in communities like Nima, poverty levels are high, and a girl's bride price could be a fortune for a struggling family. Girls in some parts of Ghana struggle to have their voices heard, even in who they want to marry.
The only thing I just asked them, do you want to get married? They were like, no, we just want to go to school. And that told me they want to go to school and they want to learn more. So right now, if a child is educated before marriage, she will know how to take care of herself as well as the children she's bringing up.
1 out of every 4 Ghanaian girls is now married off before the age of 18. It's a canker that thrives on the culture of silence that exists in closely knit communities like Nima. It's also because of the gender-based stereotypes that usually is unfavorable to women. But here, these girls are not just getting the empowerment that enables them to speak up, but also the power for them to be able to defeat one of the major causes of forced marriage itself, poverty.
But for the girls here today, there seems to be change in sight. They come here every day to learn how to code and build computer software.
There's no money. I have to give something.
Amadou Mohammed works at the local mosque in Nima and volunteers his time teaching these girls.
People see us a different in the community, don't even understand. So people thought that we are deviating our way from the Islamic way of teaching a girl child. In this community, they always want the girl child to be humble. Even if she's right, she has to just keep quiet. They are thinking when we empower the girls to know better, and when they marry them, they will challenge their men. If their men are going wrong, they will challenge. So they don't want, even some of the parents don't even want their female girl. So come here. And that is a problem. Because they have this mentality that if she know, she will not let everybody to cheat on her. And we said, no, she has to defend herself, know her left and right, and be able to feed herself when the husband or nobody is not behind her.
The work Achievers Ghana is doing here is one that is helping break barriers. But even more importantly, it is giving these girls a second chance at life. And so they can break for a selfie. Because this is a chance they otherwise may never have. Justice Beidou, Joy News, Nima.
Well, that's an example of what a young girl is doing to end child marriage. Joining me now in the studio to have a discussion on this is the Communications Officer at the Child Marriage Unit of the Gender Ministry, Foster Azraku. Thanks for joining us, Foster. Now, let's start like this. The statistics, 21% of girls in Ghana are given off as brides. But you on the ground, what is the picture really like?
Okay. Once again, thank you very much for having me in your studio, Bernice, and good morning to your viewers. Well, the statistic, to put it that way, provides a very grim picture of what is exactly happening on the ground. Now, when you look at the figures, if you'll allow me to go through, Northern Region has 39.6, Upper West Region has 37.3, Upper West 36.1, Western Region 32.9, Central Region 29.5, Eastern Region 27.5, Ashanti Region 25.9, Bonga Half Region 23.9, and the Greater Accra Region we have 18.5. And you realize that there's a bit of a change in numbers when you go to region by region. This translates to the number of girls who are married, girls between the ages of 20 to 24 years old now, and 1 out of 5 of those girls were married even before they were 18 years. And this translates to about 260,000 girls in Ghana who found themselves in this union before they were 18 years old.
260,000?
Exactly. 260,000 girls in Ghana, age between 20 and 24 years, who were married before they were 18 years. So this tells you that the number we have in Ghana is quite high. It's based on certain interventions. There's been some sort of improvement, because back in the day, in the 90s, one out of 3 girls were married before they were 18 years. But
so we are improving.
We're improving, more or less, based on certain interventions and progress that has been made.
Per your statistics, you can tell that the 3 poorest regions have the highest number of girls married as children. Now, I'm just wondering, so there are a lot of reasons why children are given off as brides. Sometimes it's tradition, sometimes, but the highest cause really is poverty, is it?
Indeed, yes.
So as a ministry, what are you doing to tackle that problem? Because I'm sure someone is sitting at home thinking, if you can deal with a poverty problem, then you probably can also deal with people giving off their children as brides.
Okay, yes, that's right. Before I get to some of the things that the ministry is doing, let me also state for the record that poverty is not only the main reason. We could also have teenage pregnancy as one. We also have certain norms and traditions in our society in Ghana here that is also driving child marriage. We could also look at some impunity of persons who are violating the rules and laws of this nation that looks at the protection of children. Ideally, you are not supposed to give out your child, no matter the circumstances, in marriage. Now, back to your question. The ministry, as one of its interventions to tackle some of the challenges that face our country, is introduced the LEAP, the Livelihood and Empowerment Against Poverty scheme that looks at giving out some sort of grants to some targeted households. So that is one of the ways that, in terms of poverty, the ministry is trying to or the government is alleviating poverty. So for someone to say that as a result of the lack of money, I would want to give out my child into marriage, then for me that is a very, very, it's an unfortunate situation which is happening, but that is the case. But then we are working and assiduously to bring about an end to child marriage by looking at some of these sort of interventions, basically. And
do you have evidence that, for example, LEAP has helped, solve this issue of child marriage in certain areas in the country?
The LEAP aspect is not necessarily tackling child marriage. It's looking at alleviating poverty in the long run. But since you mentioned that poverty is one of the reasons why child marriage is being perpetuated, so those are some of the interventions that are being put in place. However, if you look at the causes of child marriage, it is multi-pronged. So you need to look at it from that angle. There are varying factors that bring about child marriage, and then poverty necessarily is not the only reason why children are given out to marriage, basically.
So let's talk about what the Ministry of Gender is doing in dealing with this issue, because I've seen a couple of campaigns,
Yeah.
But what other measures or interventions are you employing to deal with this problem?
So like I mentioned earlier, child marriage has varied causes. Now, the ministry, as part of its strategy, developed a 3-year strategic framework. And this before the strategy, the whole campaign to end child marriage was launched. Now, one of its key strategy was to come up with a strategic framework that looks at coordinating all the works of NGOs, civil society organizations, to all speak one voice in terms of intervening to end child marriage. Now, this strategic framework looks at certain key and priority strategies that looks at how child marriage can be tackled from various angles, be it health, education, religion, communications. All these aspects would have to come together to bring an end to child marriage. So this strategic framework will provide our country with priority strategies that will look at ending child marriage in Ghana.
And that is in partnership with UNICEF.
Exactly.
You're hoping to launch it this year. When exactly would you launch
We
this framework?
are looking at, within the first quarter of this year, this strategic framework will be launched, and we're going to bring together our key partners who are so key in helping to develop this framework. So within the first quarter of this year, we should come up with that strategic framework, which looks at an operational plan for the next 2 years, the 2017-2018, to try and bring child marriage to the barest minimum.
All right, first, another thing of interest to a lot of people is how these girls are rescued. The GNA reported, I think just a couple of days ago,
Yes.
that 9 girls were rescued in the Ashanti region between
yes.
the last 6 months. And
Yeah.
they're between the ages of 13 and 16. How do you go about your rescue efforts? I'm sure someone is sitting at home wondering if they can help. I mean, how do they help if they have knowledge of someone who's been given off as a child bride?
Indeed, we've been making a lot of noise about the issues of child marriage. So gradually, the public has been informed that child marriage is illegal. Now, we tend to have a lot of calls, and some people even walking in to report some issues, perhaps a neighbor or perhaps a family member who is trying to be given out in marriage. So what happens is that when we get such reports, we quickly liaise with the NGOs or partners on the ground who also work with the police or the DOFSU units within those regions to go in to bring in such girls, like what happened on Tuesday or so, where we had the Department of Children and then an NGO as well as the Ghana Police Service coming together to rescue such girls.
Before I find out from you how you rehabilitate these ladies, because some of them actually go through a lot of traumatic experiences, and let me speak to Alexis Terry. He's a social worker and the executive director of the Center for Development Initiative, an NGO engaged in a lot of work on this subject. Now, he's joined us via phone with some thoughts. And hello, Alexis.
Hi.
Hi, yes, sir. Now, the issue of child marriage, well, as per the statistics, we can see that we are doing well. But for you as somebody who works on the ground, briefly tell us what your thoughts on this issue are.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your cherished listeners. Indeed, we are doing, we've recorded some minimal gains, but I think the numbers and the statistics, as your other resource person is talking about, are still not encouraging, because with any one child abuse is too many to be glossed over. I think we've done well in terms of the media campaign, but one area that we are yet to actually put, for me, is key, is to see how we can revisit the issue of this girl-child education, ensuring that these girls in particular, because their numbers are more frightening when it comes to the gender, when you disaggregate the data within the context of the gender. If we get these girls into school, it is not enough to get them enrolled. We must ensure that there is consistent retention and, more importantly, successful completion of the senior high. Because the moment they get to the senior high level and they complete, their assertive skills are enhanced. and their well-being is completely changed. Let me share with you what we have done. For example, in the Greater Accra region here as an organization and with effective partnership with the Regional Coordinating Council, we implemented one of the programs on child marriage within the Accra metropolis, the Medina Municipal, Adenta, and then Asiama. And what we did essentially is to focus the subcommittee of the digital assembly, because the children have places the responsibility on them, and that includes child marriage. So these structures are there. How do we ensure that we make sure that these structures and the people who occupy or who get elected into these structures know what their duties and responsibilities are? Unfortunately, and it is not just to say that it's not just related to these alone. Many institutions and many people who are dealing with child rights issues and other don't even know what the Children's Act is talking about. So they are not able to legislate bylaws properly to be able to deal with the issue. So after implementing this project, it became very clear that there was a need for the various subcommittees to mainstream child marriage as a key issue. The RCC, I know, also were in the process of seeing how can we ensure that, for example, that child marriage, in addition to it being a gender issue, is featured prominently as part of the FOAT, the Functional Organizational Assessment tool. So that when they are assessing you as a district assembly, they should find out what are the practical steps that you have taken to deal with this matter.
Exactly.
Because it's a challenge to human resource development and it's a challenge to poverty eradication.
Yeah, Mr. Terry, I'm just curious about this. We've seen a lot of rescue efforts quite recently, and there's a lot of campaign and education on child marriage. But is it possible, if we publicly name, shame, possibly punish people who are engaged in child marriage, it could be a deterrent?
Yes, it certainly should be a deterrent. And in addition to it, the deterrent of it should actually start from the community. Let me give you another success story that we are so proud of as an organization. In the Sosala West District Assembly, where we implemented the project, in fact, it was so participatory that the 4 traditional councils of the district became active participants to the extent that they formed subcommittees and even came out with their own sanctions that if you are a chief in the community and there is an issue of a child marriage which does not come to your attention and later on is exposed, you will be fined 1,000 Ghana cedis, so that they will take up their responsibilities seriously. So they formed vigilante groups to ensure that the practice does not go on. And the District Assembly actually wrote a letter to them encouraging them to form such committees so that they can take it at the District Assembly level, at the community level, at the traditional level to deal with it. That is a more sustainable way of dealing with deterrence, naming, and then shaming. So I think it is good that when people are actually found to have engaged in this obnoxious practice, they should be exposed, they should be named. But you know, the challenge is that any time they want to deal with it as a family issue. We
exactly.
have come to see you, we want to solve it, we want to deal. And for me, that is where the biggest challenge is. Now, even with the Kaya phenomena that we are seeing in the urban areas, our implementation of this project has revealed that there's a positive correlation between the uptake of the number of Kaya we are getting in urban countries and the fear or the perceived fear of being given out for marriage if they remain in the places of origin. There's a positive correlation. People finish JSS, there's nothing for them to do, and they are afraid that if they stay at home, they are going to be given out for marriage. So what do? They run down.
They come here. Mr. Terry, now UNICEF is partnering the Ministry of Gender to develop a 3-year national strategic framework to end child marriage. Well, we are hearing from Foster that they are hoping to launch it in the first quarter of this year. What are you expecting to see in that framework?
Fortunately, I have been part of the development of that framework. So, yes, we co-started, we did everything, and I think it's such a beautiful document. But for me, you know, as a country, we have all kinds of framework, we have all kinds of documentation. The ability to mobilize the needed resources, both material and human resource, to be able to implement it in a manner that is participatory, in a manner that there is community ownership. is very, very key. If not, it will become one of the finest documents we have ever developed, which has not ever been implemented. But I think all the things that are there are good. It's a resource mobilization strategy that I want to see how we can operationalize it and bring in the necessary resources.
Finally, Mr. Terry, before you leave, I was just going to ask Foster this question, but I'll take your thoughts and ask him as well. On rehabilitating these young ladies, some of them are married off as young as 13 and they don't have any means of survival. So when they are rescued, what's the plan for them, really?
You see, when they rescue, I will expect the ministry to liaise with the social welfare. Rehabilitation and the reintegration of survivors of this nature is a professional activity that can best be done by the social welfare, where they have social welfare. First and foremost, what you need to do is to do the social inquiry, social investigation report to get the background information, where you will be able to know who are the parents, where are they, what are they doing, what are their livelihood opportunities, so that you can then begin to draw a rehabilitation program for the child, as well as a rehabilitation program for the parents, so that it becomes sustainable. Let's say, for example, the child needs to be taken back to school as part of the rehabilitation options that will come based on the diagnosis that you do with the child, which will come from your social investigation report. What it will mean then is that while those interventions are being put in place, how do we ensure that the family, who are the breadwinners of these children, are also supported in a manner that after the interventions, that the immediate intervention, they will take up those responsibilities. For example, we have rehabilitated 3 children, and what we did essentially is to make sure that we know who they are, and while we were supporting them in school, we also increased the parents to some livelihood opportunity. For example, we get a capital support to the grandmother to enhance her tabletop business that she was doing. So gradually, the support we're giving begin to reduce. We're no longer giving exercise books because the grandmother can now buy the exercise books, and we concentrated on the school fees and then other things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexis Terry, for sharing your thoughts with us. We really appreciate a pretty interesting conversation, but we have to wrap up quickly. So, I mean, briefly, before you leave, he shared his thought with us on the earlier submission on the fact that if poverty is dealt with, then we are likely to see it trickle down to, solve the issue of child marriage in certain communities. But before you leave, briefly, someone is sitting at home saying, that's my child, and I decide what I want to do with my child. What would you like to tell the person?
Well, what we usually do is we send a very clear message out there that the right of the child is paramount. The welfare of the child is very, very important. Now, child marriage is not in the interest of the child. Marrying a girl off or the child off at a very tender age is not in the interest of the child. We usually look at other opportunities or other alternatives whereby we can bring about some sort of, reprieve for you. So, child marriage, it's illegal. It's a crime. It's not in the interest of the child. It has very dire consequences for the future of the child. So we continue to encourage parents to do away with the notion that giving your child off in marriage will be the best interest of the child. It is wrong. It is not the best.
Thank you very much, Foster Azraku.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And Foster Azraku is the Communications Officer at the Child Marriage Unit of the Gender Ministry. And we've been talking about child marriage. You're watching Joy News Desk.
Thank you. Thank you very much.